Okay, part 4 of Identity Crisis. So far, we've learned that God made a lot of promises that He intends to keep to the house of Israel and the house of Judah. And we also realize that the house of Judah and the house of Israel are completely two separate nations. And the first time that he mentioned the word Jew was mentioned in the Bible was when they were fighting Israel. Jews, the Judas, and the people of Judea. The one that live in, they call it Israel today and took the wrong name because the name belonged to the house of Israel, from Manasseh. So now I'm going to go in and tell you who are the lost tribes. I'm going to show you who the lost tribes are right now, today. Ezekiel 37:16 and 17. Moreover, thou son of man, take thee one stick and write upon it for Judah and for the children of Israel, his companions. And then take another stick and write upon it for Joseph, the stick of Ephraim, and for all the house of Israel, his companions. And join them one to another into one stick, and they shall become one in thine hand. Ezekiel 37 had become known as the Valley of Dry Bones. This chapter talks about restoring Israel and Judah in the last days. At some point in time, Israel and Judah will once again join together and become one nation. This will happen when Jesus returns to rule for 1,000 years. We know that we are in the last days. Number one, in 1948, Judah once again became a nation, taking the birthright name that does not belong to them. We also know that the birthright nations come to power in the late 1700s. So today, the prophecies have been fulfilled at the Lord's promise to raise up both Judah and Israel in the last days. Okay, let's go to Hosea 12:1. Ephraim feedeth on wind and followed after the east wind. Remember, when Ephraim is mentioned in there, it means the house of Israel. To follow after the east wind means that the lost sheep had to travel west. We know they already went north of the promised land, and now we know they're traveling west. Psalms 89:25. I will set or plant his hand, or the scepter, also in the sea, and his right hand in the rivers. This is where it starts to get interesting. At a certain point in time, the scepter leaves Judah and is transferred to the house of Israel, with a descendant of David still on the throne. I'm going to go over the David's throne after this. It'd be part 5. These details I'm going to discuss a little later. So right now we know that Israel is located to the north and west of the Holy Land and in the sea. Jeremiah 3:18. In those days the house of Judah shall walk with the house of Israel, and they shall come together out of the land of the north to the land that I have given for an inheritance unto your fathers. In the future Exodus, Ephraim, or the house of Israel, will return to the Holy Land to join with Judah and inherit the land promised to them. This happened when Jesus returns to reign. Jeremiah 31:8. Behold, I will bring them from the north country and gather them from the coasts of the earth, and with them the blind and the lame, the woman with child, and her that travaileth with child together, a great company shall return thither. Many believe this refers to the Jews, but if you read verse 6, you will see that it is definitely referring to Ephraim, or the house of Israel. The coast of the earth is a hint that Israel is dominant at sea, thus indicating they have spread widely by colonization. Ephraim and Manasseh will be coastal nations, possessing the gates to their enemies. When Jesus returns, he will gather these nations with a multitude of people back to the promised land. Let's go to Isaiah 49. 49, 3 and 6. On verse 3 it says, "And said unto me, Thou art my servant, O Israel, in whom I will be glorified." 6, "And he said, It is a light thing that ye shouldest be my servant to raise up the tribes of Jacob, and to restore the preserved of Israel. I will also give thee for a light to the Gentiles, that they mayest be my salvation unto the end of the earth." This is referring to the house of Israel, not Judah. He says here that when Israel is restored, the Lord will be glorified and be a light even unto the Gentiles, thus confirming Christian nations. Let's go to verse 12 now of Isaiah 49. "Behold, these shall come from far, and lo, these from the north and from the west, and these from the land of Sinim," which is the area of Asia. Jerusalem is the focal point from which Jesus will rule. From this point, Israel is far away, somewhere to the north and also to the west. Chapter 49 begins with, "Listen, O isles." Israel is addressed here as islands. This once again suggests coastal nations. The term isle or island is sometimes translated as coastlands. There are several passages that refer island as being Israel. There's Jeremiah 31:10 and Isaiah 41:1. Jeremiah says, "Hear the word of the Lord, O ye nations, and declare it in the isles afar off, and say, He that scattereth Israel will gather him as a shepherd doth his flock." In Isaiah, it says, "Keep silence before me, O islands, and let the people renew their strength." The Lord is the one that scattered Israel abroad, and it is He that will gather them once again. If you draw a line from Jerusalem, west and northwest, it will intersect with two coastal nations. Both nations were at one time together and became a great nation and a commonwealth of nations, and the other nation a single great nation. Both dominate the seas, possess key geographical areas of the world. Both are wealthy and powerful nations. Both have become Christian nations and serve the God of Abraham. Both recognize the modern day Israel as the chosen of God and come to their defense if any nation tries to go against them. Both came to world power in the late 1700s. Both grew together as a multitude before they split into two nations. By now, you probably guessed who these birthright nations of Ephraim and Manasseh are. It's England and the United States. These two countries alone have fulfilled the prophecy of the birthright nations of the last days. The British Commonwealth of Nations is the only company of nations in Earth's entire history to date. England is descended from Ephraim. The United States is descended from Manasseh. All prophecies pertaining to the house of Israel in the latter days are referring to these two nations and their allied company of nations: Canada, Australia, Scotland, Wales, Ireland, New Guinea, New Zealand, and South Africa, all of which speak the same language and are considered Christian nations. The lost sheep have been found. The Hebrew word for man is pronounced ish. That's what the Hebrew word man means, ish. The Hebrew word for covenant is pronounced brit. The word covenant man then would, in English word order, sound British. Is it a mere coincidence that the true covenant people today are British? When Joseph's portion was split between his two sons, the 12 tribes of Israel became 13 tribes. Is it a coincidence that America began with 13 colonies. The symbol of the family crest of Manasseh was the eagle. Is it a coincidence that the symbol of America is the eagle? Is it a coincidence that American government is set up similar to that of Israel of old? Is it a coincidence that England, America, has fulfilled prophecy to the letter? The English-speaking nations are the restored house of Israel. Still not convinced? Let's see what the New Testament says about Israel. Galatians 3:7. Know ye therefore that they which are of faith, the same are the children of Abraham. Anyone that receives Christ as his or her Lord or Savior becomes a child of Abraham. When you receive a drop of Jesus' blood, you become heir to the bloodline of Abraham. You become the seed of Abraham and heir to all of the promises given to Israel. Galatians 3:29. And if you be Christ, then you are Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. God promised many things to Abraham and his descendants. Whenever you accept Christ, the promises to Abraham become your promises. You become heir to every promise given to the house of Israel. Galatians 4:28. Now we, brethren, as Isaac was, are the children of promise. Christians are the true Israel of God. They fulfill the promise to Abraham and the promise of Ezekiel 36, that when the Lord once again raised the house of Israel, he would make them Christian nations. Galatians 6:16. And as many as walk according to this rule, peace be on them, and mercy upon the Israel of God. When you receive the baptism in the Holy Spirit, you become a son of God and heirs to the kingdom. You become the true Israel of God. Most pastors say that the church has never been a nation and the church cannot be Israel. The church isn't really Israel. It's the nations itself. The United States is Manasseh, England is Ephraim, and the other nations, the Commonwealth nations, that makes up 12 or 10. 10 nations, the 10 lost tribes. 1 Peter 9:10. But ye are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a peculiar people, that you should show forth the praises of him who hath called you out of darkness into his marvelous light, which in time past were not a people, but are now the people of God, which had not obtained mercy, but now have obtained mercy. The Lord divorced the house of Israel of old, and sent them into captivity. It did not have mercy on them. The Lord has now raised the house of Israel as promised, made them Christian nations, has given them mercy through the atoning blood of Christ. When you become a Christian, you receive mercy through grace. Through the spirit of adoption, the house of Israel has once again come back into the family of God. Romans 11:18-21. Boast not against the branches, but if thou boast, thou bearest not the root, but the root in thee. Thou wilt say then, the branches were broken off, that I might be grafted in. Well, because of unbelief they were broken off, and thou standest by faith. Be not high-minded, but fear. For if God spared not the natural branches, take heed lest he also spare not thee. This passage is directed at the Gentiles who have received Christ. The branches are the house of Israel, which are naturally born of God. The Gentiles are grafted into the family of God through adoption. They become a child of God only by adoption. And they're not to talk bad against the natural sons of God that were sent into captivity and were divorced by God because of their unbelief. Romans 11:23, and then there's 24 and 25. I'm going to do 23 first. And they also, if they abide not still in unbelief, shall be grafted in, for God is able to graft them in again. They will come to a time when the natural sons of God will once again join the family of God. They will once again become sons by birth as well as by faith. Romans 11:24. For if thou wert cut out of the olive tree which is wild by nature, and were grafted contrary to nature into a good olive tree, how much more shall these, which be the natural branches, be grafted into their own olive tree? What it's saying here, if the Gentiles can come into the family of God, how much easier will it be for the natural sons to come back into the family? Now comes an important passage that's going to open your eyes. Romans 11:25. For I would not, brethren, that ye should be ignorant of this mystery. Here's another mystery. Lest ye should be wise in your own conceits, that blindness in part is happened to Israel, until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in. There has been a mystery concerning the house of Israel. What is this mystery? They have been blinded to the fact who they really are. The house of Israel believes that they are a Gentile nation. They have no idea that they are the natural sons of God. The fullness of the Gentiles is upon us. The gospel is being preached throughout the entire world. The time has come for the house of Israel to know who they really are. The churches believe that we are Gentiles because the churches all started in Asia Minor. That's where Paul preached and where the 7 churches of Revelation were located. If you will notice, these 7 churches were all located in what used to be the Assyrian Empire. This is where the house of Israel was taken into captivity and was assimilated into another nation, and lost their identity. This is where the church began. Matthew 10:5. These 12 Jesus sent forth and commanded them, saying, Go not into the way of the Gentiles, and into any city of the Samaritans enter ye not, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Jesus knew the location of the lost tribes of Israel. He sent his disciples to Asia Minor to plant the seed of the gospel into the house of Israel, which was still there from the captivity. The churches began in the house of Israel, and it was the house of Israel that spread the gospel around the world, even though they believed they're Gentiles. It was actually the house of Israel that spread the gospel. Yes, we are Israel, physically and spiritually. Another pastor, when he read what I had down on it, he goes, well, okay, well, yeah, so what? What's that? He couldn't argue with the scriptures. And he finally agreed, yeah, well, you're right, but so what? What difference does it make? That's exactly what he said. The difference is that all the prophecies for Israel in the last day pertain to us. For instance, when the nation of Magog comes against the mountains or nations of Israel, they're coming against us, the Christian nations. Knowing that we are Israel changes many things. I would say here now to ask God to remove the blinders from your eyes and pray that he will show you the truth. Many will dismiss this study and will refuse to accept the truth. I expect that. But after the destruction comes, they're going to start asking questions. Why is this happening? Why am I still here? Why am I seeing this? This is not what I was taught. But one day soon, the entire world is going to know who the house of Israel is today. And this is going to be turbulence like you've never even seen before. Well, I'm going to stop here. The next one I'm going to do is the throne of David. Where is the throne of David? It has to exist. But I will go through that on the next one. You all have a good night. God bless you.